There was a lot of interest in my short video of one flight of my Dakota, and I promised to do a narrated video. I have to say the reason I built the Dakota is because of my interest in the older model airplane engines of the 049 size. The first older engine I purchased was a K&B 049, which I used to power a Streak, which worked out really well, and it's had a lot of flights. The K&B was nice, and it had a built-in fuel tank below the engine, and that was real easy to set up. At the same time I had purchased the K&B, I purchased a Winmac 049 and put that in a Smarty and used a clown balloon with pressure system. A few months ago I had purchased a OK Cub Z on eBay, and then somebody sent me two OK Cub 049s. I asked what plane they had used, and they said they'd used a Dakota, so that's why I decided to build one, just to try out the engine. And then I started collecting the 049 engines. I had an Atwood 049 and an Anderson Spitfire, a Holland Hornet, and a Thermal Hopper Cox. And then I learned there was a book that was the OK Cub story about the family that created the engines. So to build my Dakota, I purchased the BMJR kit, which is really a complete kit. I think it even had wheel collars in it. So I was building the Dakota and working on a jewel box at the same time. So it's kind of hard to say just how long it took me to build it. It was longer than I thought it would be for being an all-sheet balsa plane, but I covered it with tissue thinking this would be stronger, and I covered part of it before finishing all of it just to make it easier to cover with the tissue. I just hope it isn't going to warp. The plane has like 5 degrees left thrust, which seems kind of strange, and you launch it to the left. It does need some right rudder tab, which I found out in my first launch. But it survived its first cartwheel to the ground, and I put in some right rudder tab, and the next flight was really something. I put in more fuel than I probably should have, and it got really pretty high. It seems strange at first to me that it circles in this severe bank to the left, but it works. That's the way it wants to fly. And sometimes you'd think, sure, it's going to crash, but it recovers. But once the engine stops, then it just straightens out and flew in a nice big right circle. For a fuel tank, I used a small syringe and cut the top off, and then I angled it forward. This is the idea I got from watching one of Josh Finn's video, and it's worked out well. One flight I did try launching it slightly to the right, and that's not a good idea. As you can see what happens. It crashed, but it survived. Well, I'm going to end the video with an additional flight. Most of the flights look just really consistent, flew in that same pattern. The OK Cub just ran really good and seemed to be plenty of power for this airplane. And it's just fun flying something from before when you were born. This airplane came out in the 40s, and the OK Cub, I think, was like late 40s, early 50s. They sold a whole bunch of those OK Cub engines, and I can just barely remember seeing them in ads in magazines, but it seemed like the hobby shops at the time had all Cox or Winmac engines. For my other engines, I have a Starduster that I'm making kind of a universal mounting system so that I can swap engines real easily. So I'd like to try each of the different engines on the same plane and see how it flies.